We are about to turn this room into the most technologically advanced, next-level cinema and gaming room that you have probably ever seen. I'm literally about to get a call in 8 minutes, and on that call, we actually need to lock in and buy the products that we might well be using for the rest of our lives. And then we will set it up, and we'll experience it together for the first time. I cannot tell you how excited I am. So when I first walked into this room, here's how I thought this was going to go. I thought, oh, cool. The room already has such good noise isolation. We're going to be able to get an awesome projector for like £5,000. Speakers will probably be another £4,000. And then the blank screen, maybe another £1,000. £10,000 total. And it's going to be awesome. But wow, have we seen some crazy stuff you can do to take it further. The first of which is, this is going to be a gaming room just as much as it is a cinema room. So we spent the first couple of days just deciding exactly which gaming consoles we wanted to fill it with, adding in extra TVs and finding a way to hide them in the room, and then realizing that we'd already hit our initial budget with that alone. But things only started to get really crazy when we headed to a place called Pulse Cinemas to find out what was possible with the audio and the projector parts of this dream cinema room. And it was super cool because these guys had actually built 3 different tiers of cinema, and each level introduced new layers of technology. But even their tier 1 cinema system, which by the way started at £30,000, had some very cool things going on. Like, one problem that you need to solve if you're going for a high-end cinema is you've got a massive screen in front of you, right? But then where do the speakers go? Yeah, you can put them on the sides, but we very quickly realized that you're going to get the best sound if at least some of those speakers are directly in front of you and facing you. So learning number 1 is that you can't just stick like a whiteboard on your wall as your screen. The best screens are made of woven fabric that is acoustically transparent, so it doesn't interfere with the sound at all, so that you can put some of your speakers behind it. But there is a lot more that we've realized you can do and that we're going to try to do.
So that's going to diffuse the sound. So it's going to reflect the sound back into the room. If you just put absorption into a room, it would sound like, I don't know if you've ever been to an anechoic chamber, but it would just sound horrible.
Oh dear. So yes, turns out you actually don't just want absorption, like we have here. If you're trying to build a perfect cinema, then you have to actually balance out audio absorption, reflection, and diffusion to make sure that the sound is traveling in the right way around your room. The only remaining thing to do then was to settle into these uber plush reclining chairs to actually see what this £30,000 investment results in.
My goodness.
I had a string instrument so deep. And that's partly because this was a 7.2.4 surround sound system. You actually see these numbers thrown around quite a lot in this world, so just so you know, the first number means how many main speakers you have. The second is the number of subwoofers you have, which handle your deep bass notes. Most casual home cinemas will have 1, but these guys went for 2. And then the third number is the number of ceiling speakers, if any, just because those can add a whole extra dimension. So with that, I was so curious, what on earth could tier 2 do? Well, this was a £60,000 room. And as well as the obvious projector and speaker quality upgrade, the other immediately obvious thing is you can't see any of the speakers. This room is showing how if you use the same acoustically transparent material as we previously had just for the screen for your walls too, you can actually create a completely next level bonkers sound setup in which you see no speakers. And that's so cool. But also, it's at this sort of what I would call very high priced tier that you start to come into another conundrum. So most home cinemas will need some sort of power amplifier as the brains to process all the audio and video signals, to give you the ports to connect up to audio speakers, and to provide the power needed to drive them. But when you get to the high end, you start to realize that you're going to get better performance if you split this functionality into multiple boxes. So having a completely separate box dedicated just to processing and upgrading your audio signals, and then another just for upgrading your video signals. And that's what they've introduced with this setup. So we tested it.
All call. Any carrier in the sector, please respond.
Feel it in my bones. It's actually quite hard to describe to you how ridiculously impressive this second setup was. Like, my legs were actually shaking when the bass notes hit. Okay, so tier 3. Ooh.
Wow.
Whoa, whoa, whoa.
Now, as you can probably tell, I was trying to keep my cool because, you never want to get too excited around people trying to sell you stuff, but my God. I mean, this might just be the prettiest room I've ever seen, full stop. But then the guy introduced me to what this room is really about.
It's actually more to do with the Trinov. It's an in-house developed system to give you the ultimate bass experience in any room. What it gives you is the seat-to-seat consistency of bass.
I spent about 30 full minutes trying to get to the bottom of what this Trinov actually is. And long story short, this cinema system, which by the way is priced at £300,000, has 4 powerful subwoofers at the front. Those subwoofers fire out a wave of bass anytime there's a low note in what you're watching or playing. And then the back of the cinema is lined with 4 more of the exact same subwoofers. And this is where it gets interesting because these are called the absorbing array, which basically sends out the same signal that the front is sending out, but just inverted in order to cancel that sound out, and then slightly delayed by the amount of time that it takes the front sound to reach the back of the room. And so Trinov is basically the processor that allows super advanced stuff like that to be calculated. But why? Well, essentially to make sure that bass doesn't reverberate. It booms, you feel it in your soul, and then it cuts to dead silence again to give you the maximum possible audio dynamic range. The ability for one moment to be explosive and the next to be a whisper. So we had a listen to this absolutely bonkers tier 3 setup, and yeah, I had never experienced anything like that before. The sound was just bonkers. Like, it felt like a sphere around my head and the music was swimming in my brain. But no, obviously we didn't just see that and then buy that. I mean, we've spent a lot of time in showrooms since then. We've seen screens that can actually extend to match the aspect ratio of your movie or game. We've seen audio processing boxes taller than I am that actually have eyes for some reason. And we've seen seating, my friends. Seating so comfortable that, oh my God, I swear at some points I was physically unable to pay any attention to what the sales guy was telling me. And so, this is what I'm thinking right now. We found a company called Meridian Audio who's going to do our speakers. Out of everything we tried, they were the pinnacle. We're going to end up going for, I can't quite believe I'm saying this, but 21 speakers and 12 subwoofers. And then to finish the whole thing off, we managed to find not just an acoustically transparent screen, but also an acoustically transparent fabric that's going to cover every single wall so you don't see a single speaker. And projector-wise, I initially came into this thinking I was going to get a Sony or a JVC, you know, the consumer-facing brands. But through our travels to these various showrooms, we found this company called Barco, and they usually deal directly with businesses, so I'd never heard of them. But the brightness of those projectors versus the JVCs, it's actually a big difference. Maybe because they're designed for bigger commercial cinemas. And the seating, we decided it has to be the masterminds that made this thing right here. And turns out that is a company called Movia, who seem to have a whole load of different base designs and materials, but then they're also completely modular. So you can actually configure the exact arrangement of those designs. So this guy's gonna call in about a minute. The price really adds up when you start adding arrays of speakers.
Hi Aaron, how are you doing?
So we've had a look through the quote. We're happy to go ahead with it.
That's brilliant, that's great news. Even small private cinemas that are run by film clubs and stuff like that, very few of them get to this sort of level. It's going to be probably one of the very best private cinemas in this country.
All right.
We're going to be playing Smash on it.
We're going to be plugging a Nintendo Switch into it, yeah.
Wow.
Now, I thought from the point of placing that order, this would be a 1-month job. Yet again, foolish ambition. It actually took 4 months, for a few reasons. We had to tear down every single existing panel on the walls. We had to fit 4 ceiling speakers, 12 subwoofers, and 17 wall speakers, which, to be honest, the only crazier thing than hearing that number is seeing it. Remember, every one of these speakers contains multiple speaker cones. Then we had to refit new panels on top in a very carefully controlled combination of super high quality noise isolation pads with the very best sound diffusion panels we could find, all painted black and then finished with our acoustically transparent black fabric going around the whole room. And then finally, because the team who was building it had to do a lot of testing, constantly tweaking the arrangement of things using this multi-array microphone to check the results at each stage, until it was just perfect. And that is now. Inside this room is one of the greatest cinema room and gaming rooms ever created. And I haven't even tested it yet. We're about to do it together on camera, and I am about to pee myself with excitement. Welcome. So I'm going to take you around the room like this, and it's just going to keep building. Starting with the console cabinet. Weirdly, this is one of my proudest achievements ever. We started out with a plain cutout in the wall, and we quickly realized two issues. One, that all the consoles are different heights, so you had just a ton of wasted space. But the bigger issue was cables. We had like 30 different cables trailing all over the place. Because I am obsessive to an annoying level, I didn't just want the consoles to be powered on. I wanted to create a space where every single controller of every console is also always plugged in, always fully charged. And so, with a bunch of carefully placed plinths, false walls, and shelves, we have actually pulled that off. You basically can't see a cable. So, what hardware did we go for? Well, from left to right, you can see we've got 4 PlayStation 5 Slims. There's actually a very good reason for that, which I'm getting to. But what I want to show you now is one of the key problems that we were trying to avoid, which is, what console does this controller connect to? Then I remembered that Sony themselves actually sell alternate colored plates, and then realized that they also sell controllers that matched to the color of those plates. So yeah, one thing led to another, and now we have 4 color-matched PS5s, which is just surreal. There's the PlayStation Portal here, which again, does actually charge here. It's like secretly connected magnetically to a very stealthy cable behind it. This is a console that's had a little bit of a character arc for me. When it first released, I thought, wow, that's a very overpriced, empty piece of hardware. But as soon as you have really good, stable internet, and also you have a specific use case for it in mind, it can be an absolute game changer, like it is in this set. This thing plays a pivotal role in what we're trying to do here. Then this is a 1 terabyte Xbox Series X. This is basically just for Halo. I've been obsessed with Halo ever since I was like 10 years old. And since Halo already has 4-player split screen on one console, it'd be absolutely silly to get 4 Xboxes. Also, I absolutely love these Razer chargers we've got for all the Xbox and PlayStation remotes. We went through a lot of different ones with RGB lighting, ones that tried to match the designs of the consoles. Nothing beats the look, the feel, and the quality of these. And then, of course, we have the Nintendo Switch corner. And as silly as it does feel to have this little tablet that's like a third of the power of a modern-day phone, Nintendo makes great games. And the fact that on just one of these things, you can have 8 people playing multiplayer games at 60 frames per second will forever be an embarrassment to everything on that side. You gotta love the optimization. And then in here, this has always been a dream of mine to do. So for a long time, we've used these knockoff Nintendo Switch Pro controllers. They're very customizable, they're fun to look at, but they're a little cheap and you can kind of tell. And somehow 3 of the 4 of those controllers I use have managed to develop some form of joystick drift. Not this time. I wanted to do everything in this house to the highest possible standard. We wanted to have the best controllers with also the best customization. So every single one of these Switch controllers is an official Nintendo Switch Pro controller, but custom painted by Colorware. And I cannot believe how good it's turned out. Oh yeah, and the final thing in this console cabinet seems really boring, but is actually so cool. This is an HDMI matrix. So this connects every single output device, like a PlayStation, an Xbox, a Nintendo Switch, with every single input device in this room. Because yes, there are multiple screens here. So every single device in this entire room is allocated one of these numbers, and then you just tap these buttons to decide which screen those devices can display their image on. Now, up here, we've got 2 side cabinets. So these were not here when we first got the house. We got them made because there's a few extra things that we wanted to add to this room, starting with the tech shelf. Now, to most people, this is probably going to look like a dumpster fire, but I'm hoping, given that you're watching this video, you will see this for the art piece that it is. So these 2 are making sure that every device has the fastest internet and the fastest data transfer. Like everything where possible is wired, not wireless. Then you've got a layer of plugs. And this isn't fun, but I think it's really important when you're building a room like this, where you might be powering something that's sitting on the other side of it, that you just label them so you know what's what. Now, underneath that is something called the Blue Sound node. And the only reason that we have that is just so that we can use our phones to play music through this ridiculous Meridian sound system, which on one hand, yes, seems like a really strange thing to have to do in 2024 and the era of Sonos speakers which have that capability built inside of them already. But basically, you'll find when you get to really high-end sound systems, everything is separate. Partly because they work in slightly old-fashioned ways, but mostly because splitting up the functionality of each device allows you to get devices that do each function at their absolute maximum. So there's no bottlenecks. And then below that, we've got the Lumagen. And the reason we have this box in very simple terms is it makes things look better. We've got so many different devices in this room, all connected to the same displays, Nintendo Switch, Xbox, PlayStation. There's an Apple TV box behind here as well. The Lumigen takes in all of these inputs and just makes sure that when they come out of it, they are corrected in every way possible. And then we've got this absolute unit of a box, the Trinnov Audio. Like you've seen, this thing's like a supercomputer designed with the sole purpose of audio processing. And there is something really cool that we've managed to pull off in this room thanks to the power of this box. But we're getting there. And then this is a freezer. It freezes things.
Wow.
Anyway, I am so happy with how this thing came together. So this is a PC. It's designed by PC Specialist, specifically for virtual reality. They have this very fun and very dangerous configurator when you're picking what you want. But eventually we decided on this absolutely bonkers specification. So RTX 4090 graphics card, 24-core Intel Core i9 up to 6 gigahertz, 8 terabytes of M2 solid-state storage, 64 gigabytes of RAM, and the entire thing is also water-cooled just to keep it as quiet as possible. And when the thing arrived, that was all the stuff we expected. What we didn't expect is just how handsome the thing is. We originally allocated the top half of that shelving cabinet just to store the thing. We took it out of the box, saw how the black perfectly matched the background, the wood paneling here perfectly matched the sofas. So we just decided it has to be here. This just makes sense. This is actually the first time I get to try it. Headset, controllers. Oh, by the way, this is actually a really cool time to show you the Control 4 Halo Touch. So technically, all of these are remotes for something in this cinema room. This is the only one we actually need. Every single one of these normal remotes is designed to have one purpose, whereas this remote is connecting to the hardware in the house on a deeper layer. And so I can do basically anything on this. Like for example, if I click lighting here and then I go into scenes, we have 5 different lighting modes, each creating a different mood in this room. But the reason I'm showing you this now is if I click this watch button here, this is every single input device in this entire cinema room. All the PlayStation 5s, the Xbox Series X, Nintendo Switch, and the VR PC. So all I have to do is to tap on that PC button, and the PC goes through the HDMI matrix and starts displaying on this main screen. This is absolutely insane. So I'm streaming right now from the PC, which means you're able to play VR games at a level of graphical fidelity you would not be able to with the headset alone. Oh, and there's like no latency at all. And then for the headset, it might seem like a little bit of a strange decision why we went for the Meta Quest 3, because I was saying we wanted the best of the best for everything in this cinema room, and you can get a lot more fancy and a lot more expensive VR headsets than this. There is a whole world of ultra specialized, extremely cutting edge headsets, but this is the one that I keep coming back to, because if all you want to do is game, then they are all worse than the actually quite simple Meta Quest 3, mostly because of how much more reliable the software is on this thing. I've only got the sofas, and the reason that I fell in love with this is, as far as the comfort's concerned, you cannot tell this is not a normal sofa, but it's actually kind of high tech. So I mentioned before that one of the main perks of this is that it's modular, meaning that each one of these segments is its own piece that you can kind of chop and change to put together like pieces of Lego, which means we've managed to get a sofa that perfectly fits the space we wanted, leaving just enough gap on either side. It means we've been able to specifically select the feature set that we want in the armrest. So I just think this is so cool. If you pull this back, you've got a drinks holder with an RGB configurable light on the inside and a Qi charger for your phone. People are always asking for chargers when they come to your house, so it's tough to describe how much joy it brings me that now I can just say to them, stick your phone in the armrest. But this is the cherry on top. It also means that every single one of these seats has its own 3-part movable skeleton underneath. So you reach your hand into this crevice, you can adjust the footrest, you can adjust the headrest, and you can also, with a different button, adjust the depth of the thing. And it comes out so far, it is almost bed-like, which is just insane considering how compact it is. I'm not exaggerating when I say this thing is hideously expensive for seating, but at the same time, it is the best movie sofa I've ever experienced. We did end up going for the barcode projector, which has a 5K resolution, and you can kind of tell that it's commercial grade by the fact that it has an actual display on the side so that someone in a viewing area can actually see a preview of what's being projected out the front. Now this is Cabinet the Second. This is a simple one, but it's no less fun. Basically all of our favorite snacks. And we thought that this area here would actually be really nice to pour yourself a drink in, but since we don't actually have any bottles yet, it is filled with Pringles. And then this is a, well, not so mini fridge. And the thing that I think is particularly cool here is is how it's integrated. It's quite easy for a white fridge and some cheap snacks to stand out like a sore thumb in a room like this, but the way we've done the paneling and used the same acoustic fabric that we have across the entire cinema room on this cabinetry as well makes it feel like a part of it. Beanbags. So these are from, a company called Vetsac, and they're about twice as big as I was expecting them to be. The box came into the house and I was thinking, oh, that seems a little small, but cute. Then I opened it and the thing friggin' exploded in front of me. You then have to leave them out for 48 hours to fluff, and here we are. I knew we wanted beanbags in this house ever since we did a team retreat in an Airbnb 2 years ago, and that place had swapped out every single sofa with a beanbag, and it changed the entire vibe. It created such a feeling of calm, which I loved. So, the reason why we've got 4 PS5s here, the reason why we've got an HDMI matrix, half the reason why this room exists is because of this button right here, Co-op Gaming. And while this happens, I want to explain to you why I've chosen to use Surfshark VPN for our cinema room PC. So, you probably know how most VPNs work. Oh my God, it's actually working. They take your traffic, they route it through one of their servers so that all the website on the other end can see is the details of that server. And that's already pretty cool, but Surfshark uses Nexus technology, meaning that every one of their servers is connected and that Surfshark can bounce you between all of them on the fly without dropping your connection. And that's pretty next level because it means you're even more difficult to track because you can have a new IP address every single time you click a new link. And instead of your data being masked through one server, your data can be masked through an entire network of servers. And you'll get even better speeds because as soon as a faster server opens up, you can be routed through that instead automatically. And if you go to surfshark.com/boss, you can now get it at the all-time lowest price ever, $1.99 a month for an unlimited number of users with 4 extra months for free. Oh my God. I can't actually believe this. And they're all on automatically. Just give me a second to take this in. So this is 2 LG G4 OLED TVs. These things are 55-inch, 4K resolution. The picture quality is amazing. And each one is mounted to by far the most bonkers mechanism I've ever seen in my life. So this is from a company called Future Automation. It can project the TV down a whole meter. It can swivel in 360 degrees, and it communicates with Control 4, which means that from this remote, I can set the precise centimeter and angle that this TV is positioned at. Also, each mechanism weighs over 200 kilograms. So getting those into the ceiling was actually the single hardest part of this entire project. This is it. This is it. Oh my God. This is a dream I probably had for the last 5 to 10 years. And today, it has finally come true. I can hear bullets all around me. I can see what you guys are up to in my peripheral vision. Every gunshot has so much weight to it. It's insane. It's done nothing for our performance. The skill level is incredibly low on this battlefield.
And you can hear it behind you.
Yeah, you can hear everything. You actually instantly know where the enemies are. Oh yeah, and you want to know the most bonkers part of this whole thing? Because of that Trinov supercomputer sitting in the cabinet, the sound from each person's game can be directed towards the seat that they'll be sitting in. So everyone hears a slightly different mix of audio tailored to what they're noticing on their screen, while still getting the background from what's happening on everyone else's. And this is also where the PS Portal comes in. It connects to the white PS5 for player 4. So even though there's 3 main screens, we can still do 4 friends, online co-op gaming in the same game at the same time. Just nuts. And this is the piece de resistance. So let's say that after gaming, I want to watch something. Okay, so you pull up Apple TV, play trailer, and then there is a mode baked into here because yes, we did go for a motorized screen. Hit movie. Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. It happens so smoothly, I can't believe it.
Is that supposed to be scary? The R rating isn't new for me, Fredo, but it is for Disney.
Oh my God. You know, the thing that's hardest to communicate through video is how the sound envelops you in the content. You just feel like all these walls, they're actually speakers behind them. You're being blasted from every single angle and it just pulls you in. It's the best sound I've ever heard in any cinema ever. Next episode is the living room, which we have equally spicy plans for.